Hello, my friends. John LaRuffa here with another Straight Up Solo. And in this episode, we're going to take a look at my top 10 list of underrated solo games, or games from a solo standpoint that certainly don't get talked about enough and fly under the radar. Now, I've done a lot of different top 10 videos here, and some of these have shown up on some of them, but this is a specific list of things where I feel like these games should get more love from the solo community and you just don't hear about them. And maybe that's because some of them are old, or some of them, are not rated all that well on Board Game Geek. And I'm not talking about bad ratings per se, like 5s or low 6s or anything like that, but not as high as I would have thought they'd be. So let's get right into it. My first one is an interesting puzzle game called Factory Funner. Now, I had Factory Fun a long time ago, and I sold it to pick up Factory Funner because the geometries were more interesting. And basically what this game is, it's a beat your own score, high score game, but it's a geometric puzzle with no time component when you're playing with we're just playing solo. Basically, you're trying to get the best points you can by building as many machines in the coolest configuration as possible. I think it is a really fun, enjoyable solo game just to set up, play, and take down. It's just a really cool little spatial puzzle, and I never hear it get talked about anymore. So that was my number 10. Now my number 9, I think, is probably rated pretty highly, but it's very expensive and hard to find a copy, and I can understand that. And that's probably why it is not in the mainstream, but I think it's worth mentioning here if you like this sort of game, and that is Roads and Boats, and I happen to have the and etc. one that has the expansion in there. This is a very old school game. There's no doubt about it. It's full of little chits, and it's very fiddly, but it is like a sandbox puzzle with kind of an anything you could do, any strategy you want to try, you can do it to get the highest score. And it's a lot of little production conversion chains, and it's a little logistical puzzle. It's just very cool, and I don't own anything like it. And I really wish somehow there was a digital adaptation for that game someplace, because if there was, at least one like on an app or something we could play more mainstream, I would play it so much more often, because the fiddliness is kind of but it is just so much fun. It's such a cool puzzle to concentrate on, and try to see if you can really break through to some very high scores. And there are different things online that I've found over the years that have different kinds of map setups, and people post their high scores. It's just really cool. I like it. So, number 8. Number 8 is a game that I barely ever hear about. And I'm always shocked by this, because this one has some trappings of the toy factor and everything else. And I've really enjoyed it, and I've kept it for years. And that is Era Medieval Age. And Era Medieval Age is a little 3D builder where you are rolling dice for resources and building up these little kingdoms and putting different buildings in there with walls and other things, and you have to feed your people. The solo is cool because you're working against a pretty simple bot where you're just rolling the dice for them and they kind of steal your resources or whatever. So it is a little bit of I think there may be some stratification of how you win, but it is beat your score. But I'm surprised that one doesn't get nearly as much publicity as I would think. And I've bought some expansions for it and really have enjoyed all the different things that you can do and combine. It's a really fun game. And I don't know, it's kind of fun to build a little 3D, kingdom, I guess you'd say. So Era is a good one. Check it out if you can. All right, number 7. Number 7 is a game that's very old. I shouldn't say very old, but it's going on 10 years. And it's one that I haven't seen any buzz on ever when it comes to solos. But I really like it because of how unique it is, and these two different ways you can play this game solo, both working kind of in the main game, like working into the future, but also kind of working down into the past. And that is Legacy, the Testament of Duke de Courcy. This is a very interesting game about your family tree, which doesn't sound very interesting when I say it that way, but boy, is it. There's just so many cool things about how this game kind of interacts and the way people do things and the way you have different cards that go with one another, the way it scores. It's just such a unique design. And that whole, I think, design bears more recognition because I don't think I've played a game similar to this ever. Like, this is one of those few games that you know, every time I play it, it's always a very fun puzzle to try to crack. It's hard to win solo and hard to do well, I guess, because there's two ways you can do it. But I've always really enjoyed it. And if you can get a chance to learn it, it's not the easiest game to learn. I wouldn't say it's overly difficult to a point where it's not worth it, but they have some kind of unique interactions, if I remember correctly. And then when you want to learn how to play the opposite way, where you're trying to figure out your ancestor, it is a little bit kind of backwards in the way it's sort of explained there. Of course, it's backwards, but it does have a little bit of learning curve. However, I think it's worth it. Okay, number 6. Now, number 6 is one that I had. It was like literally on the store shelf forever. I kept looking at it, putting it down, looking at it, putting it down, because the ratings on it were never really all that great. But I think it's a really fun solo experience, and that's Gentees. So Gentees has a time mechanic where when you're taking actions, they cost a certain amount of time units. And the more time you have, or the better you can manage this, the more actions you can get done. And you're doing a lot of different things in this game. There's area control, there's different inventions, there's just different tiles to get. The cards are cool with regards to what they do. They interact with one another. It's a unique design as well, and one that I find pretty fun. It's definitely underrated, and it is a cool game. I don't know how easy or not easy it is to find a copy anymore. I guess TMG doesn't exist anymore, but maybe you can get it from the Game Brewer. Either way, it's a good game to check out. Okay, so that was 6. Now, I'm going into a couple games that I think are really, really good, and I'm surprised that either the ratings are lower, or as low as they are, or they're not talked about as much. I mean, what I just talked to you about, I liked it a lot, but these are really shocking to me. Okay, this one. This is one of the first videos I made on my channel. This is number 5, and this is Black Angel. I, for the life of me, don't know why the ratings on this game are as low as they are. You know, I would think this would be a solid upper 7s, low 8 kind of game because it's got so many cool things going on. First of all, you have this mechanic where the board is kind of marching ahead over here on this track, and where you decide to explore and go and different things like that kind of evolves throughout the game because things move. Second of all, there's a lot of really cool dice management in this area where you're rolling dice and assigning the dice to do different actions and do different things. And then third, you have this like activation matrix, which I find very cool and puzzly and fun to pull off. And as you build this up, you can build in some really cool combos with it. There's a lot going on in this game, but I don't understand why it's just not nearly as well received. Now, maybe there's something about it that people don't like, and I'm not sure, but I've always loved Black Angel. Every time I pull it out and relearn it, I'm like, oh, this is a great game. I can't believe I've gone this long without playing it. And I usually play it a couple of times before I put it away, which is a shock because a lot of times I play things once, put it away, pull out something new. But that one, I usually play 1 or 2 times, or 2 or 3 times before I pack it back up. So it's also got a really good solo mode, which is hard to beat. And that's also fun. All right, number 4. This one's not too long or too old of a game, but I was surprised that it didn't get as much, let's say, publicity maybe, or just overall novelty chatter, and that is Stroganoff. So Stroganoff, and unfortunately I don't have, the back of the box is just more artwork, but Stroganoff is a very, very thematic, different designed game, and it's unique, and that uniqueness is what makes it stand out for me. It's got a nice history to it because of the period it's talking about, and the way that you play the game, the way you expand your influence and the things that you do all kind of go into the theme quite well. The solo is easy to pull off and play. And it's just very rewarding. And I think, again, it comes from the standpoint that the mechanics in this game and the things you're doing have a novelty about them that just seems a little bit different. And I don't know, I just really like it. I did back the expansion. I can't wait for that to come out on Kickstarter. And when it does, I'll definitely be displaying that and talking to you all about it as well. But I've really enjoyed Stroganoff. I've had a lot of fun with it. And I'm just surprised it doesn't get more buzz. I don't see more people talking about it. Okay, number three. Number three is a really strong worker placement game, but I can see why people might find it a little confusing with all the icons and such. However, when you talk about it from a solo standpoint, once you've learned that, you don't have to explain it to anybody. You don't have to worry about, teaching anybody about that. And I just really like it, and that's Oak. So Oak has a lot of Euro trappings to it with the way that the game works. There's area control in this game. Not necessarily area control. It's a little bit different, but kind of like unique worker placement in the fact that you're trying to go to certain spots, and when the certain spots are filled, you can't necessarily get there. But also you can upgrade your workers. There's a lot of variety in what the abilities do. You can do a little deck building with your cards. Just a ton of cool things, cool concepts in Oak. And I know it didn't necessarily go over all that well with a lot of people, but I've always enjoyed it. I really like the fun of trying different strategies and different options to try to score well. I think it's really cool. Okay, number two is, I would say, a classical Euro game that I really like. And maybe it's because it came out a couple years after this phase of games had been really popular. But every time I pull it out, I play it and enjoy it and just love the puzzle it presents. And it is kind of a cool game in the fact that you can ramp up the difficulty based on your previous games to try to challenge yourself to do even better. And that is Crown of Amara. Now, I have talked about this game before on my channel, and it is very much an old style sort of Euro game with a deck build, with a deck selection mechanic. You're not building anything, but the way that you play your cards is it determines what you're going to do from an action selection standpoint. And you have two different competing scoring tracks. You've got that I can't remember if they cross. I think that they don't cross, but the lower of the one is the one that makes your score happen. And it's just a very cool Euro game. You're trying to just be efficient what you're doing, pull off big turns, and there's some resource management in there, and it's just a lot of fun. I love it. Now, my number one is probably the lowest rated game out of all these. And I passed on this game for a long time because everybody talked about how dry it was and how they just didn't really appreciate it and this and that. And one day I finally took the leap. And actually, this is one of the first games that I talked about on my channel. And I have since then bought expansions for it, bought kind of different versions of it, so to speak, with like a puzzle book, and that is Tramways. So Tramways, I get it. It doesn't look necessarily super appealing from the artwork on the back. It looks very modern-esque and clean, but not necessarily, screaming out to everybody like, this has got all sorts of coolness going on. But boy, do I love the puzzle of trying to do well in this game. And depending on how you put your boards together and the way it works with regards to what you try to do, you just really have a lot of cool choices to make. And I put that as number one because it's probably the lowest rated out of the ones I talked about, but definitely one that you may want to give a try if you like really puzzly style solo games. There is no automa, I don't believe. I think you're just beating your own score, if I remember correctly. But it is just a great game and a really fun puzzle to solve. And if you like it, there's also this is like a bonus here, but you can even get the Engineer's Handbook, which is just a whole slew of different puzzles to solve with additional rules as they add. And this is like this is such a good traveling companion if you're on a plane or if you're traveling for work or with a vacation. You just want to bring something along to solve some puzzles. This is really cool. So both of these games combine lots of fun. I think highly underrated, and I'm shocked that they are so. Anyway, I'm sure that there's a lot of different games that are low on the totem pole from a rating standpoint that you like to play solo, and I'm interested to hear what those are. I've maybe sold some of them, I've maybe played some of them, I've maybe kept some of them, I don't know. But everybody's got their favorite, and that's important. You know, that just because I like these, you might hate them all, or you might like half of them, or whatever, but I love to hear about what you think. So feel free to leave me some comments and tell me what your number one underrated solo game is. And maybe I'll agree, maybe I won't, but I'll certainly comment and let you know about it. So thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate everybody. Whatever you decide to do in the future, I really do hope you have a fantastic time doing it. Take it easy.